If you live or grew up in Austin, you've probably seen references to bats everywhere. You may even know that Austin is the self-proclaimed bat capital of the world. Citing the fact that Austin is home to one of the largest urban bat colonies in North America. But how did Austin get this reputation? What drove Austinites towards exterminating the bats? And who helped make bats the iconic symbol of Austin that they are today?
Open Texas ball. West everywhere again in Margaritaville.
From spring to late fall, Austinites gather by the Congress Avenue Bridge to watch hundreds of thousands of Mexican free-tailed bats begin their nightly outings. The bats typically come out within the hour of sunset to hunt for bugs. Many of these bats stay around Austin foraging insects.
I just remember the first time I saw them. It was hard to believe to see these swarms of these bats flying out from under the bridge. Years later, what was as impressive were the number of people who would just flock to this bridge at night just to see bats. I mean, that's kind of extraordinary. It's kind of extraordinary.
That's Dr. Michael J. Ryan. He studies animal behavior at the University of Texas at Austin.
So this is mostly a maternal colony. So the females come up and give birth under the bridge. There'll be thousands and thousands and thousands of little babies that are born. And when the females go out to forage at night, they leave the babies behind. Some species of bats will carry the babies when they forage, but not the free-tailed.
These bats, and the ones under the McNeil Bridge in Round Rock, are some of the largest urban bat colonies in North America. But these bats weren't always there. In 1982, the city of Austin began an expansion project on the Congress Avenue Bridge. The expansion project transformed the bridge into the perfect home for the bats to live in. The bridge's construction created slots that are around 3/4 to 1.5 inches wide and around 16 to 18 inches deep. The structure of the bridge also regulates the temperature for the bats, making it the perfect place for the bats to nurse their babies.
We found that when that gap or that crevice was open a certain amount, the bats treated it like a crevice in a cave, in the ceiling of a cave. They didn't know the difference. So they got in there and kind of made their homes.
I talked to Mark Bloschock. He was a structural engineer who worked on the Congress Avenue Bridge expansion.
And so they could really regulate temperature in their environment, just like we do with air conditioning and heat.
But this did not go down well with everyone.
The bats quickly ignited fear in the Austin community. Local swimmers expressed fears of bats swooping down and attacking them. Horror stories and myths about the bats began spreading throughout the city, and community members were afraid of getting diseases like rabies. In 1984, the Austin American-Statesman published an article titled "Bat Colonies Sink Teeth into City." In it, Dr. Juan Nieto is quoted saying that his emergency room had more than a normal number of people treated for bat bites in just the past couple of weeks. The message was clear: bats are dangerous and they have to go. But the reality of the situation was a little bit different than what most people had thought. This fear came from a lack of understanding of bats and what their importance is to the community. A single bat can consume thousands of insects a night, which reduces the need for pesticides. And, while bats can have rabies, an article by Rutgers University says that less than 1% of bats even contract the disease, and these rarely bite, except in cases of self-defense if handled. Despite this, however, Austin's resistance to them still persisted. A petition was circulated demanding that the city either exterminate them or control their presence to an extensive degree. Ideas emerged to use pesticides to erase their population, and in another approach, for the city to build nets around the bridge to prevent the bats from living there. This attitude towards the bats continued until one person stepped in: Merlin Tuttle.
Good morning, I'm Merlin Tuttle, and I founded Merlin Tuttle's Bat Conservation. I've been the guiding force in gaining protection for Austin's bats for more than 35 years.
Merlin Tuttle and other bat conservationists raised awareness about the positive benefits of bats in an effort to protect them from extinction.
I had no more than gotten started when Media claims arose that hundreds of thousands of rabid bats were invading the city of Austin and attacking the people.
When Dr. Tuttle came to Austin, he got to see a lot of the anti-bat attitudes for himself.
People had been warned that these bats were mostly rabid and would attack humans. They were terrified.
However, Dr. Tuttle saw something in the bats that many others didn't.
So I visited Austin and right off saw that there was a gold mine of opportunity. The problem was unjustified fear, and that once that was corrected, the bats could become a major tourist attraction, a major benefit.
Soon he embarked on a massive community education project. Dr. Tuttle took professional photos of the bats to present them in a better light, talked about the relationship between bats and human well-being, and he debunked the belief that bats were vampire bats, which do not live in Austin.
I came to Austin and took live bats with me on media shows and to schools and other places, and simply explained that in decades of studying bats worldwide, I had never been attacked by one, never contracted disease from one, and then in fact, bats are among the world's most naturally gentle animals. If you simply left bats alone, the odds of being harmed by one were almost unmeasurably small.
Tuttle's and other bat conservationist efforts to save the bats worked. Attempts to eliminate the bat colony were squashed, and nothing came of the petition that was started from the Austin community members. Eventually, Tuttle founded Merlin Tuttle's Bat Conservation, an organization which actively works to educate and conserve bat colonies.
So anyway, I think I've just seen how Merlin, and it's not an exaggeration to say single-handedly, rescued these bats from eviction and maybe even destruction, and turn them into a really worldwide famous tourist site where people will line up on that Congress Street Bridge.
Over time, tourists began flocking to the Congress Avenue Bridge. Over $10 million annually is brought in from bat tourism alone. Today, Austin now embraces its identity with bats, claiming the title of the bat capital of the world.
Today, they're bringing in millions of tourist dollars a summer. They're consuming tons of insect pests a night, and they still have not harmed a single person. No one has been attacked by a bat. No one has contracted disease from a bat, and yet millions of people have visited Austin from all over the world to enjoy the spectacular flights.
Additionally, the Texas Department of Transportation now builds bridges to include areas for bats to live, just like where the bats live under the Congress Avenue Bridge. So if you're in Austin and you see a bat on the side of a bus, or even if you go to see the bats yourself, remember that the bats weren't always here.
See one? You go back.